I want to welcome you to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. Here's today's question. In Matthew chapter 5, 17 through 19, mainly verse 19, what actual commandments is Jesus referring to here? 10 commandments, all 613 Old Testament laws. I keep hearing there are 3 types of Old Testament laws, but no scripture backing that I can find it. Also, I know faith saves and not works. Well, I'm glad you ended the question that way because it really is a springboard to my answer. It is there in verse 19 of chapter 5 where Jesus says, whoever keeps these commandments will be least in the kingdom of heaven. And basically from the very beginning of what you and I know as the Sermon on the Mount, basically Jesus draws a standard that the commandments and the keeping therein is what establishes or what bases one as being righteous versus unrighteous. And then we know for the rest of chapter 5, he talks about our relationship with each other, whether we're, in a wrong relationship with the wrong individual, whether we've done something wrong, harmed, hurt. Then chapter 6, wrong relationship to the Lord. Chapter 7 brings it all back together. Why is this important? Because I'm going to go down an angle of the Sermon on the Mount that you may or may not have heard before, and I think it's worthy of just a few moments of our time. For the majority of my life, maybe not yours, but the majority of my life, I've always heard that the Sermon on the Mount was kind of this thesis for biblical Christianity, how to live our life, the marks of sanctification, for lack of better terms. Now, the problem with that is there was nobody at the Sermon on the Mount that was a born-again Christian. Jesus hadn't gone to the cross yet, he hadn't risen from the dead yet, and the entire audience in the Sermon on the Mount were Jewish individuals that were offering their sacrifices and their gifts at the Jewish feasts and festivals. You say, why is that important? Well, because when you get to the very end of what we know as the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gives us a really intriguing illustration. He talks about 2 men who build a house. One's built on a rock, one's built on sand. The rains come and the storms come, and that which was not on the rock falls into oblivion. That which is on the rock is safe and secure. And he concludes the Sermon on the Mount by communicating to make sure that our life is built on him as the rock. I don't really see what we know as the Sermon on the Mount as a thesis for Christian sanctification. I see it as an exposure for our depravity of sin. Let me go back to the question, verse 19. He who keeps the commandments. We can't keep the commandments. Per the question, that's why we're saved by faith, not by works, Ephesians 2, 8, and 9. And so I see the Sermon on the Mount not so much of this is what you should be doing, as much as you have failed in at least one of these areas, which means that your life is on sand unless you build the house on the rock, which we know Jesus referred to himself as. Great question. If you have one, send to askjeff.net. Maybe your question be tomorrow's. Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at askjeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.